Yo, 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 what is going on, people? Welcome to Throwdown Your Questions, episode 526. I'm your host, Tony Polanco, and tonight I'm joined by Emilio Lopez.
Sup, people? How's it going?
And the returning one, Mr. Richard Bailey Jr.
What's up, everybody?
All right. You already know. Good to have you back, Rich. And tonight you're just going to get three of us, I believe. Chris...
Three amigos.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, Carlos is still on vacation in Europe. Chris said there's like thunderstorms or something that threatening to happen in his part of the woods in Austin, so probably won't be on. Brett is still recovering. Adam's doing the Reacher show, and I think it's now daylight saving time in like England. So if Brian joins us, it's probably going to be in an hour. As usually happens if he joins us at all. But yeah, you got the three of us, and it's all good. Once again, I want to give a huge shout out to Jay Shep, who pretty much saved the show again this week by asking us a bunch of questions because nobody was asking. Thankfully, some other people, after they saw, how it is. Like once one guy gets through, everybody starts coming in a little bit.
It's like the volunteer program where it's like you're like, hey, can everybody have any volunteers? And nobody answers. And then one guy goes, and then everybody goes, oh.
Yeah. So also shout out to Jay Shep, Mr. Michael Santiago, and Syrian Air Force is also joining us in the chat. And also shout out to Barry Byrne holding it down. But yeah, Jay, but obviously since we didn't get a lot of questions, no restrictions on the number of questions. So Jay Shep asked 6 of them. So we're going to go through them. And of course, the other ones as well. All right, start things off here with obviously the most controversial topic of the week. With all the hate against Assassin's Creed Shadows, Ubisoft Plus, and everyone saying Shadows will be $20 in a few weeks, what are reasonable expectations for units sold? Okay, before we get to that question, I want to clarify something. Because on the Thursday show, we were like, what do you mean 1 million players? Right? We were wondering, how the hell did they arrive at that number? And then the following day, on Friday, Ubisoft tweeted out that they had reached 2 million players. Players, not units, players. I'm like, it didn't make any sense. You know what we all were missing and what all the other people were missing, they finally figured it out? I didn't realize that Ubisoft has a subscription service. If you subscribe to Ubisoft Plus, you can play the game, for free.
For free.
So now you know why there's 2 million people playing this game. Because it's not units sold. If they had sold 2 million copies, they would have flat out said, remember what happened 3 days after Monster Hunter sold 8 million? They said, we have sold 8 million units worldwide. They didn't say 8 million players. They say 8 million units sold worldwide. So obviously, I'm not going to take a guess at how many copies have actually been sold, but I'm pretty sure it's under 1 million because if it was even 1 million, they would have said something, So I wanted to clarify that. Most of the people playing this game are doing so through Ubisoft Plus. And also remember, Ubisoft was giving out codes like crazy in the weeks prior to this, And if you want, you could also just subscribe for 1 month. So it's not even a big commitment. So this is how they're fudging numbers because let's just be honest, right? This game's been getting a lot of bad press. The shareholders are already kind of wary of things. So anything to kind of make it look like they're doing good, they'll be happy with. Because let's just be honest, we've said this before, shareholders are stupid. They probably think it's units sold,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's going on there. So as to predictions, this is a conversation I had with Jay Shep. I don't see this game selling more than 5 million. As a matter of fact, I think this game will probably sell 3 million copies, which is actually very, very bad for Assassin's Creed game. Not only that, Ubisoft already said, I believe they either said this or a report came out that they need this game to sell 5 million copies for it to be like profitable. I don't think it's going to hit that. Not with all this controversy. Not only the controversy, the whole historical revisionism, but also the bugs, the insults to Japan and all that. It's just a lot of bad things. And even if you strip away all of that, and Rich, I'll go to you next since you have actually played the game. It just seems like this is a standard by the numbers Assassin's Creed game, and people are already kind of getting tired of that too. That's one of my main reasons I didn't want to go into. I'm not trying to play another 150-hour Assassin's Creed game. I'm not exaggerating that fucking number. That's how long it took me to beat Valhalla. I got the platinum in that game because that would take less time than actually under percenting it. You know. So yeah, I don't think this game's gonna. I think it's gonna sell between 3 and 5 million. 5 million if they're lucky, but I think 3 million at most. You know. Rich, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, this is a very intriguing question. I honestly don't really know how much it's going to sell. I think when we get the sales numbers, which I do expect we will get at some point, we'll be able to know exactly what it is and not listen to what Ubisoft is saying as the amount of players, all this other stuff, because clearly all that matters is the actual numbers of what the sales are. Now, yeah, like you mentioned, the Ubisoft Plus service. Yeah, I was for sure they were going to count that because that is a service that they really are trying to get behind, and they really want people to start using that service. So, yeah, but to answer the question about the game itself, yes, I did review the game. My review is on the website, thecoalition.com. I do think that it is exactly what Tony said. Yes, it's an Assassin's Creed game. Now, are there certain things about the game that would be considered an issue? Yes. But I also think that there are also certain aspects, because I've seen a lot of reactions to all the stuff that happened last week, and I had a very good back and forth discussion with Gary about this stuff because we both have been playing the game. So I will say this. I do think some of the decisions that Ubisoft did as far as that whole ban situation with they're going to be coming after people that are talking about the devs.
Yeah.
That I think is I mean, I understand if people are criticizing the game. At that point, you're supposed to be able to take that feedback. If they have something bad to say about the game, there should not be no going after people for that. Now, if they're talking about people in terms of they're going after employees and stuff like that, well, then I understand why they took that measure, because we already know that some people do go too far with going after devs, so on and so forth. But I will say that did not help them, because it draws more attention to there being a narrative about them trying to protect certain aspects of the game. And I've seen a lot of the videos floating around about the people showing the credits being too long, people showing the relationships and all this other stuff. And the thing about it is that a lot of that stuff is optional. You know, you don't have to, with the relationship stuff, you don't have to pursue those type of relationships. That is, so whoever is putting out those videos, they made those decisions because they wanted to see it, put a video out there and make people believe this is something that will happen in the game without anybody making a choice about it whatsoever. I think that's a little, hold on. Well, go ahead.
From what I heard in some reviews, that those, like, there is like a golden path version of the game where, in other words, it's like historically accurate to, at least to their whatever those characters were or whatever they've sort of established. And then there's like this whole other goofy side thing that you can do where you can make alternate decisions and change things around.
Oh yeah, that's 100% correct. That's the canon option that you can have. So, but I would say, yeah, if for anybody that is an Assassin's Creed fan, that was what they intended to do with this game. As I have said before, and I said in the review, this obviously, if you want to compare this to Ghost of Tsushima, I think there is no comparison. Ghost of Tsushima is at the very top of the list. This is a game that at its heart is just an Assassin's Creed game that's in Japan, and they're trying to do certain things that are similar to Ghost of Tsushima, but I still think that Ghost of Tsushima is the better game, 1,000%. But with that said, in regards to the sales, I have no idea how it's going to do sales-wise. I think there are a lot of people that still are Assassin's Creed fans. And again, if you go based off of the Metacritic, you saw that there was still a lot of critics that like this game. Now, I know that some of those reviews are questionable. because I did see you guys talking about VG 24/7.
Oh yeah, Rich, I love that review. What's your take on that? Where 100 out of 100, and the first line is, "This game is not perfect." What's your thoughts on that?
I think that should not be 100 out of 100. I mean, that's that right there. I'm very confused. And obviously, we do know that the scores are important because then you'll end up seeing them putting out the marketing with all of the scores that were high, so on and so forth. But in the case of what that reviewer said, I completely disagree with that score. I did not score this 5 out of 5. I just because again, there are certain things about it that I think there are going to be some issues, and there's certain stuff that I didn't like. I know you guys were talking briefly about some stuff that I mentioned to Adam that I didn't like on the last podcast.
Yeah.
I had issues with some of those mini games but I can also tell this is a game where every studio in Ubisoft worked on it because they had some element in there that I would have seen in another Ubisoft game. That's how you know it was all hands on deck because it is highly important. You know, they did spend a lot of money on this game, so I assume that that's what that is. But with that said, they could have took some of that stuff out of there. But I am curious, like the rest of you, to see how it sells. I'm curious to see what is going to happen with Ubisoft moving forward. Obviously, they have Adam's favorite series, The Division. They have made it a point to put out a trailer out for that. I don't know if Adam has seen that yet because they're trying to get people invested in that, trying to move on towards that. So we'll see if that works. But it's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next couple of weeks, months, with anything regarding Ubisoft.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, Rich, by the way, quick correction. They actually said after giving it 100, there are problems with this game. And you gave it 100, and there's problems. All right, bro.
Yes, there are some significant problems, he said. So yeah, I don't get it, man. 100 out of 100. No, I disagree with that score 1,000%.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm glad you gave us a little rundown of the game because obviously on Thursday we kind of had to talk around it. We were just talking about our what we heard. But we were like, hey, when Rich gets here, he'll give you the lowdown. So thank you for that. Manny, Manny, you got any thoughts on Assassin's Creed, all this stuff that's going on?
I mean, the writing sort of was on the wall with a lot of this stuff. You can definitely see that they didn't do a lot of their due diligence. They didn't do a lot. They've made a whole country offended.
Yeah.
Now, and it's a lot of Japanese people are also offended about, obviously, and they're speaking out on it. But you notice that nobody seems to be talking about all of that stuff.
What do you mean?
Like you see a lot of these reviews and things. It's like, as far as historical accuracy.
Oh, yeah, yes.
You're not getting any official sources. You literally have a public statement from the Japanese prime minister and, people from Japan and also YouTubers, but you don't have a real person, within the Western media literally taking a deep dive into those issues, which is fairly interesting to me.
You're right. The only people doing exactly what you said are YouTubers. They're the only ones actually doing the work that journalists should be doing, which is crazy.
Which is fascinating to me, especially with a lot of journalists, are very much about diversity and empowerment of people of all other races. But yet, for some reason, Japan seems to get a little bit of a slap when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yeah,
how is it that one country, how is it that one culture, a culture saying that this is wrong and this doesn't look right, and a lot of people saying this, from over there who know their culture better than anybody else, are essentially saying, no, this is not right, and nobody seems to be listening. Nobody seems to be saying anything. There was a person on Twitter, a writer on Twitter. I can't remember who this was, but he wrote an article like years ago, 2015. He goes, he when all this information was coming on, he goes, I would like to point out, 2015, I wrote an article about this sort of thing, how prevalent our Western media is about directly bashing things that are Japanese are very disrespectful to Japanese culture. And he also put this was in response to a very scathing review by Mr. Jeff Keighley on Electric Playground when Victor had him on there as his co-host as opposed to Tommy Tallarico, and he was very harsh with what was that game? It was a Armored Core. It was like an Armored Core. He was very harsh with Armored Core. So, and we all know, we've seen it. We even called this stuff back in the day. Shad Gravy from X-Play and all that other stuff. It's just some stuff that happens. That's just I would say this weird hidden vitriol that seems, or overt vitriol that seems to happen within a lot of Western culture when it comes to Japanese. But it's not anybody from, I would say, current generation. I would say a lot of younger kids, they've embraced all of that sort of stuff, manga and anime and all that stuff. But a lot of people from a certain generation seem to have that weird venom.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's something we've been talking about on Throwdown since day one. How, Western journalists really do not give any leeway to Japanese developers. And now, Manny, it's extending to Asian developers in general. Look at all the heat that Shift Up got and the Wukong studio got. So it's like, it's not just the Japanese now. Now it's the Chinese and the Koreans getting it. From people who are always talking about quote unquote diversity. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. You're talking about diversity and, always sort of, essentially, saying, okay, yes, these people need to be represented. But yet for some reason, those countries do it. I would have to say the only thing that these countries have over the West is they know who their fucking audience is.
Absolutely. They make
those games. Yeah. Wukong is a game that obviously it's a representation of their culture, right? Showing their world to the rest of the world, right? But it also did very well in China. Shift Up again, very much steeped in Korean aesthetics and culture over there, and it did very well.
Yeah.
So. I mean, if anything, you could say is that they under these countries seem to understand who their audiences are and what audiences that they're going for, as opposed to here where we're essentially we're Trojan horsing things.
Yeah,
where we'll have something that has the look of a very well known franchise, right? But then there's all this other garbage. It's not even the same game. Underneath it, once you get past the title.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, man. All right, let's move on here. Good topic there. Jay Shep, another question. There seems to be a lot of hype about Xbox's alleged new hybrid device. Reportedly, it will be able to sideload Steam and allow Xbox gamers to play PlayStation games without having to own a PlayStation. What are your thoughts? This is obviously way okay. This thing isn't even real yet, right? It's just a report. So we're already talking about a report, and then we're talking about features that this reported console can do. That is a little bit too speculative for us, But I will say this though: I will not be surprised. It wouldn't be side loading Steam. It's like you just download Steam or have the app on it already. It's like you're not gonna have to do some crazy stuff. Like for example, and I realize this is supposed to have its own different kind of UI, but it's still gonna be Windows 11-ish, right? And on Windows 11 handhelds, you don't have to sideload Steam. The app is usually always already there to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, and you can if you currently have a working PlayStation account, you can run remote play on your place, from your thing. You can run, or if you have PlayStation, at least a subscription to the PlayStation thing, you can run PlayStation through there. So it's not really a side load.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not sideload. Yeah, a Syrian Air Force, exactly. You got to log into your Xbox account to, log in and stuff. So that's what I suspect will happen if this thing is true, which I think it is, to be honest, because again, Phil Spencer's been talking about this thing forever. I'm not saying the system that's being reported on will come out, but I think at one point we will see a Xbox handheld of some kind, and I also suspect, yeah, you'll be able to, play your Steam games on it. And like Manny said, yeah, maybe, remote play as well, but again, it won't be side loading. It'll just be there, That's what I suspect. Rich, what do you think about this? And obviously, since the three of us, I'm getting everybody to talk tonight,
Oh, well, I will say this. A famous person once said, until you see it, don't believe anything I say. Don't get excited for anything that I announce until you have it in your hands. That famous person is Phil Spencer. So I'm going to take his philosophy and say, I don't believe anything about this handheld. I am not going to be excited for anything until I see it and have it in my hands and can evaluate it for real. But a very good question.
Yes.
But I don't know. Microsoft has a lot of things they need to work on, so I don't really know. I know obviously this is going to get announced because we've seen multiple rumors about it, but I don't know any other details outside of that.
Yeah, obviously. No, that's a good call. Until we know what this thing is, it's best not to speculate too much, Yeah. All right. What's going on, Jeffrey? He goes, do you think an Xbox handheld could be as impactful as a Steam Deck? Maybe, like, if it has the right, like, UI, obviously not Windows 11, like, as we currently have it. If it's some form of, like, either a handheld version of Windows 11 made for this machine or just an Xbox, UI, whatever, right? Maybe it could. But the problem is the Xbox brand kind of tainted. Maybe the handheld could turn things around, but it's been sullied a little bit. By a little bit, I mean a lot over the last, like, 11 years now, So we'll have to see about that, but I don't know if it'll have the exact cultural impact because the Steam Deck already did it. So this thing would have to be really revolutionary. But let's just be honest, it's not going to be revolutionary. It's just going to be just an improvement, hopefully, on what we currently have. But I don't think it's going to, like, shake the industry. But I do hope it continues moving things forward, And I also hope if Xbox releases a UI for handheld that works really, really well, that they'll let other systems use it, like the ROG Ally or the Lenovo, whatever versions they have at that time. And this is a conversation, Jeff, you and I had yesterday. Like, companies are continuing to put out newer and newer versions of these systems. So the handheld market is here to stay. We just need Steam to fucking release a new console because I think it's getting old in the tooth now, So yeah, I don't think it's going to revolutionize anything, but I think it'll be if they do it right, it'll be a good step forward, All right, moving on here. Bethesda seems to be hinting at an announcement coming tomorrow. What do you guys think it is? That part's not a rumor. Bethesda's teasing something, So by the time you're hearing this podcast, you may have already seen the announcement. I have no idea. The only thing I'll say is, like, Doom, the Dark Ages is coming, so it could be related to that. But yeah, it's all up in the air. I don't know.
I mean, it could also be something. It could also be something for as it could be Starfield. It could be anything. There is quite a bit of things that there's quite a bit of things that we know, that some things that we do know that are coming to, everything. So,
yeah. What do you think, Rich?
Well, let me just say this right now. I haven't seen the teaser, but I will say this announcement, it better not be announcing something related to Indiana Jones, because they've already told us this is coming to PlayStation in the spring. So if that is the announcement, I'm not going to be too happy about that, and I will have a lot to say on Thursday if that is the announcement.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to just take a wild guess right now. I just saw Bethesda's tweet. It's Troy Baker sitting on a couch. It's Indiana Jones related.
Oh, there you go.
That's it. I'm going to assume it's going to be the official announcement for the PlayStation 5. I could be wrong about that, but that's what else could it be? It's fucking Troy Baker.
Yeah. So, what else would he be on? What else would
all right, he be? So to answer the question, it's going to be Indiana Jones on PS5. The image says it all right there, bro.
So let me just say that is a highly disappointing announcement because we already knew that this game was coming to PS5. Unless they're going to talk about this is the PS5 Pro features, I don't see what the big deal is. Obviously, the release date, that's probably what they're going to announce. But man, Bethesda, that's very disappointing. I was expecting something else.
Yeah, it's probably going to be the release date. If I had to take a guess. But we'll see. We could be wrong, but we'll see. But with Detroit Baker, come on, bro. Come on. Come on. All right, man. Another one here. Lots of rumor questions here, but just to be honest, that's all that's happening now in gaming, so I can't blame the homie, and obviously I appreciate the questions, there are rumors of a God of War, quote unquote, God of War side story releasing sometime this year. I know you guys don't do rumors, but do you care to comment? We've been talking about rumors for the last 3 questions, so might as well keep it going, right? Caveat, and correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, I believe this rumor came from Richard Bailey's favorite person in the industry, Jeff Grubb. So take that.
Grubby? Grubby did it?
So take that how you will. But I wouldn't be surprised because the rumor is that there's going to be like a God of War collection. Of course, there's going to be one. There's nothing else out. This is all, bro. Rich, we now live in a time. Remember how PlayStation shunned Days Gone? Now they're re-releasing that shit. They're desperate, Yeah.
Yes.
Because they wasted their time on a bunch of fucking service games. So now, what's the quickest way to get it? All right. God of War 20th anniversary just came out. You just saw you saw a picture of TC Carson and
I saw that.
You saw that,
what's his face?
And Christopher Judge,
Christopher Judge standing together with God of War rings.
Yeah.
What does that tell you?
Yeah, that's telling you something. And I, and Rich, I'm gonna throw it to you next, but I asked this on Twitter, I'm asking it again. What is the plural of Kratos? Is it Kratai? Two Kratos. Kratoses. Yeah, Kratai. So yeah, Rich, what are your thoughts on your best friend Jeff Grubb's prediction here?
Well, I have no idea who this guy is, but I heard that Romney Def knows him very well. So yes.
I think he might.
Yes. So let me say this. Sony, they haven't really. There hasn't really been anything significant they've released so far this year. They still have Ghosts of Yotai coming out, and of course, the other game that Manny is looking forward to, Death Stranding 2. So, my thought is, for that reason, I don't really believe that particular if they are working for something extra for God of War, maybe it is a remaster or re-release of a the director's cut edition of a game they've already released. I don't know if it's going to be a new game this year. Because they have been so quiet, I just don't know if that's going to happen. Because again, they have to make time for Yotai, which is coming out this year, and of course Death Stranding, which we know is coming out in June. So I don't know exactly if that's the plan, but I'm very skeptical on if that God of War, whatever that is coming this year. I think you're more likely to see another remaster before you see that in terms of later this year.
Yeah, I agree. And this thing may not even come out this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if there is a God of War remake or whatever of some kind, Mm-hmm. So how it is. All right, another question here from Mr. J. Shep. Did any of you watch the Future Game Show? If so, did you see anything you liked? All right, full admission, and it kind of brings me a little bit of shame to say this because I'm an employee of Future, but I didn't see the Future Game Show, so apologies for that. But I looked at some of the because just like a typical Game Award show, they announce a bunch of stuff. And I have to admit, I haven't heard of most of these titles. So, nope, I didn't see it. I don't know if any of you guys saw it. Go ahead.
I also did not see it because I was in another appointment checking out another game when this happened. But I do know that the Blooper team, they were at GDC because they were announcing something for this particular show. Just another trailer they released for their game, that Chronos New Dawn game, their new survival horror game.
Yeah.
So that's the only thing I know for sure was in the show. Outside of that, I don't know what else they announced at that Future Games show.
Yeah, so I can't say. Again, a little embarrassing since I am a future employee, but I didn't see the show, so I can't talk, man. But on the Steam page, it looks like they had a couple of world premieres, and I've never heard of any of these games. Elsewhere, Electric, Frosthaven, I Hate This Place. That's the actual name of the game. Shelf Heroes.
I've heard of that game.
Yeah, Shelf Heroes, Lost Rift, Ray, Romestead, Painkiller, but has nothing to do with Judas Priest. South of Midnight, I have heard of that, obviously. Kingmakers, Reanimal, White Knuckle, Paper Sky, Artists, Weenie Wise, Mother Machine or Monster Machine. I can't read that weird font. Eclipsium and a bunch of other stuff here. So, yep, no real thoughts on it. Just looks like a bunch of indie stuff. All right, last question for Mr. J. Shep. Whoa, Rich, this one's kind of for me and you specifically. Question for the active reviewers on the panel. When reviewing a game from a long-standing franchise, how do you fairly review it without biases from your personal preferences of an earlier installment seeping in? That's a good question. Rich, I'll let you go first, man. Obviously, you just reviewed Assassin's Creed, so that's perfect. You know?
Yeah, so that is a very good question. So what I would say is that I mean, obviously, if you've played a franchise and there are you already have an understanding of how they treat certain things in the game, certain stuff that you know that you can expect to be in the game. Like for Assassin's Creed, for example, a lot of the same things that were in the other Assassin's Creed game is in Shadows, right? They don't really. There are a few things they changed for this particular game. But for the most part, you already know, like if you go to a building, at the very top of the building, a certain building, they have that whole panning shot, the checkpoint. That's that's in this game too, as expected. I think that is a signature for every Assassin's Creed game. They have to have something like that in there. But obviously, when you are reviewing a game, you do have to look at the entire package, and you want to ask the question, are they really making so many things in this sequel that is evolving the franchise that's different outside of it just being a standard game? In the case of Assassin's Creed Shadows, there are a few things in there that are new to the game in terms of, like I say, if you're playing as Yasuke, that's more of like a tank stylized person. You can't really use stealth with him because he's so massive in size. And really, that's someone you would use if you just want to go on the attack, on the offense, so on and so forth. Whereas if you want to play a traditional Assassin's Creed game and be an assassin, you need to play as the female character in that particular instance. But you really have to look at what's different. Is this a rehash of a previous game in the franchise, or is it something different? And then once you're able to find out those differences, you're able to evaluate it, and when you're doing the review, decide what's good about it, what's bad. Is there enough good about it that it is a good game, or is it just the same thing over and over again? So you have to go through that entire process.
Yeah, makes sense. So when I review a game in a long-running franchise, I don't change my core rule when reviewing any game. I ask myself two questions every time. What is this game trying to do, and how well does it do it, right? So I that's always the core of my reviews, any review I do for a video game. So I stick with that. And what I purposely try to do is, obviously, it's a game in a franchise, so you need to talk about certain things that the franchise is known for, but you don't want it to devolve into a comparison, because I've seen a lot of reviews like that, and it's just a slog to read through. So while I do compare certain aspects where appropriate, I try to evaluate the game on its own terms. Again, based off those questions that I always have. What does this game try to do? How well does it do it? So I try to mix it up a little bit in that way. But I will never, ever go, okay, here's the part where I'm going to compare these mechanics to these mechanics for 5 paragraphs. Nobody wants to read that shit. And I've read way too many reviews that do that nonsense, you know? And also, this helps me review games and long-running franchises that I've never reviewed before. You know, like when I reviewed Monster Hunter World, I had never reviewed a Monster Hunter game. That was the first one I played, you know? But with that case, just like I did with Kingdom Hearts 3, do my research, you know? But again, I'm trying to evaluate the game that people are buying, because for most people, it might be their first game in that franchise. So they're not going to care about all that other stuff. You know, you're like, maybe there's merit in reviewing a game for like the hardcore people, you know, but I'm not doing that. I'm writing stuff for general audiences. And for most people coming to that review, they're probably never played the game before, you know, so you're going to hit people over the head with all this shit they don't know about. Like, you don't want to do that, you know, like when I reviewed Street Fighter 6, obviously there's 5 other Street Fighters before that, and the alpha games, I didn't bog it down with all that shit. I'm just talking about Street Fighter 6, you know, so to me, it's actually not that hard, because I'm still, at the end of the day, evaluating what the game is doing on its own, you know, and where appropriate, I'll throw some stuff in there. So that's how we go about it, bro. So yeah, good question there. And then on the last part, remember, no review is ever subjective. You could try to be objective, but the person's biases are always going to come out. You can't help that. But you can't help it, but you can't mitigate it. You know, you can easily go, you know, if I'm reviewing a PlayStation 5, maybe you don't want to talk about the market at the time or the political climate. You don't need to talk about that shit. That's clearly your biases seeping in there, you know? Like imagine if I'm reviewing a fucking handheld now, oh, but the tariffs may affect things. I'm not going to talk about that in a review, you know? Or talk about eating fucking, like, fish eggs in the Philippines or shit, like that other review I read many years ago. Like, what the hell does this have to do with anything? Kotaku, you know? It's crazy. All right, let's move on here. Mr. Toon Medic, Michael Santiago. Is Sony going to try and stop Xbox from integrating Steam into the next Xbox console? I don't think Sony could do anything about that, bro. You know?
No, there's nothing they can't really do that. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it's whatever Microsoft believes is there. But the thing about it is this integration lucrative to Microsoft themselves? I would think if Microsoft would want to push you toward their stores, which they both also have.
Yeah.
So I would think if we're going to go down the line of doing, and a lot of those games that are for Steam are also, are PC games. So I don't know. To be honest, I don't know if they would, I don't think they would stop them from doing it, but I also think it would be detrimental to Microsoft to essentially lock it to there, where if they have a store, they want you to buy it at their store if this is their proprietary console.
Yeah. Rich, what are your thoughts?
Well, I have a controversial answer to this question. Why would Sony care at all? Because Sony is number one, right? They're on top. They're the number one selling, console right now. You know, you throw Switch in there as number 2. So they're not intimidated by Microsoft or Xbox. You know, I just, like we said before on this show multiple times, they have a very nonchalant attitude for this entire generation. So I don't think they give a damn about whatever Xbox does. You know, after all the stuff happened with the court case and Activision, obviously, because Call of Duty was the thing that they were very interested in, they wanted to go after that. But outside of that, no. I don't think they care about what they do as far as implementing with Steam. If Microsoft is able to do that, I just don't think they're concerned about that right now. They're only concerned about PlayStation.
I
Yeah,
wouldn't say
no,
it's a controversial station. I agree with that.
yeah,
Oh,
I agree with that. And also, again, what the hell can Sony even do? Like, like they can't actually do anything.
Yeah, the only thing they can block is putting their thing on there, right? Like,
yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah,
the previous rumor question that we had answered earlier.
yeah. That's like if, like, Rich, if you want to give something to Manny, then I'm gonna be like, oh, you can't do that. It's like, what the fuck can I do? Nothing. Doesn't make any sense.
Yes.
I would say just like anything, it'd be something that is directly connected to one of their own products. If there was something that they were attempting to do on this console that was infringing on Sony, which on PlayStation, which they saw the Call of Duty, so, the Activision sale as as some sort of threat to PlayStation. But
one thing that it would be interesting, Manny, if you think about it, if let's just say this Xbox handheld has Steam, theoretically you could play PlayStation games on there because there are PlayStation games on Steam. So maybe Sony could be like, we don't want those games on there, maybe, but even that would be a little weird.
They could say that, but at the same time, it's like also. It's like the same sort of Xbox situation. It's like, okay, it's playing on a Xbox console, which is essentially a PC.
Yeah,
that's what the thing is. So theoretically, if it is playing on there, yeah, you can play your first party PlayStation games on that thing. But again, like we said this before, it's really products sales that really dictate a lot of the things that go on. And if the product sales on a specific console aren't working, we saw it with Sega. They go to like a third party, and I don't think that Sony would block it because they're still getting a sale from it, and they still have that timed exclusivity where, in other words, for a year or two, before they at least have that game on their main console, and then the shot in the arm, which is release it a year or two later.
Yeah. All right, moving on here. Got a couple questions from Mr. Assyrian Air Force, who's been joining us. By the way, a quick shout out to Red Pill Sleeper Cell on YouTube. The name is unfamiliar, but I recognize that avatar, and I'm blanking on your name, but homie has been a fan of Throwdown since day one. He's also sent us stuff to give away to the fans. So thank you for being a fan of us, and thank you for your service. Got his military, forgive me for not knowing the name, but like the formal military wear and stuff. All right, we got Barry. Can you do something about that spammer there, sir? Thank you. All right, Assyrian Air Force. First question here. Which third-party port will make it to Switch on day one to Switch 2? I guess this is just speculation now. Maybe it'll be Indiana Jones, right? You never know. Oh, man. Rich, you want to go first? What possible third-party games could we see on Switch on day one?
Well, first and foremost, as many Ubisoft games as possible. Because we had the comment earlier, the Ubisoft, they need to make some money. So I know that for sure, whatever is announced, you're going to hear a lot of Ubisoft games coming over. But a third-party game, let me think about this one, because
hold on real quick. Assyrian Air Force says GTA 5. Yeah, maybe finally it's coming.
Well, there you go. That's a strong possibility because but that is a strong possibility because I remember when Take-Two had that investors call recently, and they were talking about the upcoming lineup of games this year. There was somebody that asked them, would you guys ever consider supporting the Switch 2? And they said, obviously, we can't really say anything. This is what the CEO said. We obviously can't really say anything, but I would assume that, hey, we have a good relationship with Nintendo. Hey, we'll see what happens. So that's not a confirmation that it's going to happen, but we know damn well GTA 6 probably will not run on Switch too. So yeah, GTA 5 is a good substitute.
Yeah. Man, you got any ideas?
Day one ports.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, judging by some of the way they're saying that this new Switch would do is, I would be, it'd be interesting to see Delta.
Oh, Metal
Get it
Gear.
on
Yeah,
there.
that's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, especially since they have a bit of a stronger console now, so maybe they'll be able to run Delta or the new or Silent Hill 2, you know, or the Silent Hill F that's coming up pretty soon. I feel like Konami would probably want to start, shipping more on there, which they have supported the Switch over the years with like Bomberman games and all kinds of other things. So yeah, I would say Silent Hill 2, possibly Metal Gear Delta.
Yeah. Just because it's on my mind lately and the games. Oh, go ahead, Rich. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I got one for Tony.
Uh-oh.
Dragon Age Failguard.
There you go. And Assassin's Creed, right? Bring those.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
Would Nintendo still do it? Being that because of the controversy of the. I mean, obviously Sony is a more of an international company, right? But with Nintendo being more of a Japanese-centric company, would they want to have something they see it that the Japanese that Japan sees as offensive on their console?
Yeah, they may not, and I don't even know if that game could run on Switch too. To be honest, that is.
I mean, that game is running some serious stuff.
Yeah,
they did some pretty good stuff on that thing. So
Syrian Air Force says Resident Evil 4 remake. Do you think it's possible? I'm not sure, but maybe.
I mean, they do have. Here's the thing: they do have the RE engine running on there. Monster Hunter
Rise.
Rise actually does use essentially a stripped down version. Obviously stripped down textures and stuff like that on on their thing, so they can run it.
Yeah,
they could possibly run it on there.
Yeah. I'm going to say this. Obviously, I don't have any thoughts. I'm just throwing stuff out there just because it's on my mind. They could potentially have the new upcoming Fatal Fury game on there. I mean, the game's it's a fighting game. Those are easy to port over, so I could see that.
Or even the Street Fighter games in general.
Yeah, Street Fighter 6. Yeah.
Street Fighter 6, the new Street Fighter games have not hit the Switch at all.
Yeah, no, you're right, not at all. But we do have the Marvel vs. Capcom collection. So Capcom games, fighting games are they're already on Switch, so it wouldn't be. And Street Fighter 6 is a PS4 game as well. So yeah, it's possible. I think it would be smart for them to do that for sure. Bunch of fighting games could now be on Switch. All right, another one here from Assyrian Air Force. And Assyrian, you're here too, so I want to ask you your upcoming question. Is this something that you heard in the news? Because I haven't heard anything about this. So let me ask the question. Which of its dormant franchises will Sony resurrect? So that's what I'm curious about. Have there been rumblings? Because I did a little bit of searching, and it seems the last time we heard rumors about Sony potentially bringing back its old franchises was back in January of this year. But other than that, I haven't heard anything,
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, this would just be pure speculation. I haven't even heard about this. I know if Brian was here, he'd just say SOCOM, and MotorStorm, he'd probably want those back. Sony, he says, well, Sony has a new studio announced this past week. Yeah, that's right. I considered talking about that for the show, but it's okay, they're not a new studio. That doesn't mean anything.
It wasn't it wasn't a new studio. It was a partnership.
Something like that. I'm not sure what it was, but
no, it wasn't. Yeah. There was a thing a while during the week. It was a weird announcement where they were saying that they were working with this one studio in a partnership capacity, and they're only funding a beta. That's what they said. So, so in other words, I'm like, why are they even I think I mentioned this on Twitter. Like, why are it's a little bit
Is it
inside
the is it
baseball
the
when it
Dark
comes.
Outlaw Games studio? Because it says Sony formed Dark Outlaw Games, a new studio under PlayStation Studios led by Jason Blundell.
Oh, okay. You mean the Activision, the former
Yes, that's the one he's talking about.
Treyarch guys.
Yeah, he's talking
Oh,
about
okay.
that.
No.
Yeah, this is a new studio.
No,
Yeah, Sony firm's
no.
new
This
first
was.
party studio. Yeah,
Oh, okay. What they was doing? Because I was under the impression you were talking about that other weird story they released a while ago where Sony said that they're working with this one studio and they're only funding them up to a beta.
yeah.
Or
No,
something
this
like that. I'm
isn't
like,
it.
why are you in? Why is this even being announced? Most people, I'll tell you, to go into detail on that thing. That's the way most companies work. If you're working for working for a studio, what they'll do is they'll fund you through early development, and they'll get you up to a beta. And if that beta doesn't work, they didn't spend, if that beta doesn't impress them, then they'll just dump the project. So it's like weird that they would announce something like that, that's exactly how the industry works. Anyway.
Yeah.
What would those guys be working on if they were former Call of Duty guys?
Well, no, he's just saying that the question was inspired because of those guys being formed. So he's just wondering what games do you think Sony will bring back? Again, I don't know. Who knows, bro?
I mean, to be honest, like, there is an open dance floor for Killzone.
Yeah, that's right.
If Killzone can't be, you do a Killzone prequel, right? Where the early, the Hellgast, whatever. Because what was Killzone, and what does Sony think they need? They think they need a Call of Duty, right? So you get those guys to do a Call of Duty or a Resistance game.
Yeah,
because that's where their strength is, right?
Yeah, but again, like this question's way super speculative because I don't have any info to go on here. There's just
it's a.
I
mean, What would they resurrect? I mean, what would they resurrect? Is they would probably resurrect their franchises that have made money in the past. So
yeah,
I would say none of the. I mean, as much as beloved as the Japan studio games are, I don't think they would resurrect any of those franchises like Gravity Rush or any of that stuff. Even though Toyama said he would love to make a Gravity Rush 3, yeah, I would say resurrect any of their franchises that were sort of well known. So, maybe a Killzone, maybe a Resistance did pretty well. Maybe I don't know, could they go into the past and bring back Loaded as a multiplayer shooter game? That, to be honest, I would think Loaded would be the most conducive to a multiplayer shooter situation. But anyway.
Yeah. Rich, what are your thoughts? I guess, again, just speculation. I guess, what games do you want them to bring back?
Well, I certainly wouldn't mind a Killzone because it feels like Guerrilla. This is now the Horizon Dawn studio. Every game they make, it has to be Horizon. We got to make a Horizon game. Then we got to do another, the mainline game in the series. So yeah. But I don't know who would be in charge of making that game. Obviously not Guerrilla because they have their hands full right now. Yeah, I mean I struggle to think about some of the other franchises that they could do. Obviously, Insomniac has already done Ratchet and Clank. I don't know if they plan to do any more of that because now they're working on the Marvel games. Sucker Punch is working on Ghost of Tsushima. I would have loved to have seen another Infamous, but that is probably not going to happen.
Yeah, or Sly Cooper. That would have been fun.
Oh yeah, that would have been. Oh yeah, that would. I know people have been looking forward to that. They actually do want to see that. I don't know if that's going to ever happen.
Yeah,
unless somebody else makes it. And of course, Tony's other favorite franchise. The Return of the Last of Us.
There you go. Despite what Neil Druckmann said, right?
No, in all seriousness, I listen. If there's not going to be another Last of Us game, I'm totally fine with that. I think they definitely, however, should do something different. You know, the intergalactic stuff, I don't really know how I feel about that yet because we haven't seen anything. We hear all this other stuff about it, which is concerning. But it would be great if they went back and, I don't know, did some more Daxter, Jax, or something different. Just take a break from all of these intense games that require years and years of development. Just do something fun and simple. But they know they don't like to take that route. So that's probably not going to happen.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right. And the last question, this one kind of snuck in under the wire, you know, and it's from one of your favorite listeners, Rich, Mr. Romudeth himself.
Interesting.
Yeah. And this question's for you, Rich. Very specific.
Whoa.
He was very specific about that. He goes, for Richard Bailey Jr. So I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, he wants to know, how was your time at GDC? What were the highlights? Do you have any fun stories, etc.?
Yes. So, as it was mentioned previously, I did go to Game Developers Conference this past week. I was there for the entire week, and I actually came back, I want to say Saturday morning, because, the flight I got was one of the overnighters. But overall, the show itself, very interesting. Had a good time. San Francisco, the weather was pretty nice. The day towards when I was leaving, it was when it was really nice, and I was like, oh, I wish that it was like that the entire week. But so let's talk about a few things that we saw at Game Developers Conference. For those who don't know, normally this is a place where you can go to network. If you're looking for work or you're trying to talk with a studio that might be there, then you might be able to set up an interview with them. They also have seminars there where they basically have people talking about working on certain games, and it's very good for you to learn a lot of different information. So I will say that when I got there, I had a lot of appointments most of the appointments were offsite. I did have some that were on the show floor, but for the most part, a lot of my stuff was offsite. And one thing I do like about the event, and this is a little reminiscent of E3 to a certain extent, right? A lot of the appointments that were offsite, they were like in walking distance of the convention center. Like, so you would have stuff at like one of the fancy hotels, like the Marriott, so on and so forth. You have appointments like that, and then you walk in there. It's a very chill experience, laid back. Hey, can we get you a drink or whatever? Yeah, just a very laid back, and then you sit. Either you're watching a presentation or you're playing a game. Most of the time I was playing games though for the majority of this time. So I do like that laid back environment. Not quite as stressful as E3, where you have all these appointments on the floor and you're running from appointment to appointment. I'm glad that this is not that type of situation. And we did have a few appointments at E3 in the past, like Activision, for example, where they had it offsite at one of the hotels. Those were the best ones. So glad that we got some of that with GDC. So let me get into some of the games that I did see at the event. Now, there's some stuff that I can't talk about yet because it's under embargoes. But there are some things I do want to mention. All right. So first and foremost, the first day I was there, Xbox had a showcase event where they had hands-on featuring multiple games, some indie titles, and some other titles that are going to be on Game Pass or are coming to Game Pass. Two of the games I want to mention. One of them is this game called Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now, this is a game that we initially saw at the Xbox Showcase last year in June. It's a game, it's like a Japanese-style turn-based JRPG, right? That's what it is, but it's made by a French studio. And I recall when I saw this at the Xbox presentation event, I said, yeah, this game looks awesome because it has a certain look and a style. So I finally got a chance to play the game because they had a demo, a very extensive demo at the Xbox event. And I have to say, I'm very interested in learning more about the game. The premise is that it has this very kind of like, it's an interesting premise. The reason why it's called Expedition 33 is because pretty much there is this witch type of character that has a curse on this land, whereas once people turn 33, they die. And the whole premise of the game is that your team is supposed to try to stop her and kill her so that you can stop the cycle from repeating. And the demo starts well into, I think, the 3rd chapter, whereas you're playing as one of the main characters, the main male characters in the game. You pretty much you lose most of your team. And of course, there's certain things that happen, but you pretty much one person does survive, and then you now are trying to go back and see if you can revive some of your other teammates. But you're going through these different environments where you're going against these different bosses. And again, a lot of the thing is turn-based combat, but some of that stuff is timed. So if you, because if the enemy is coming towards you, you can parry or, dodge the attack. If you do not time that correctly, you will take damage. And in the demo that I was in, the difficulty, it felt like the difficulty was turned all the way up because I got my ass whooped a couple of times in that demo. But I like the challenge of it because you learn certain attacks, so on and so forth. So I am looking forward to checking out the game. It is coming out actually in April. So like in a couple of weeks, it will be out. But yeah, I was impressed with the game. Looking forward to it. The other game that I did get a look at briefly, I will mention, is Towerborn. This is the game that Microsoft announced a long time ago. It's made by Stoic, the same guys that made the Banner Saga. And this is their side-scrolling action RPG game that people were mad because they announced it was coming to Steam, and it was in the Steam preview, but not on Xbox. Well, I can say this because they announced it. It is going to be an Xbox game preview next month. I got a chance to play some of the upcoming content for that. And I do like what they did as far as changing certain things up. But yeah, we'll be able to talk in more detail about that soon. But I can say that when I did play it on PC, I enjoyed the game. It's just that it did feel like it could be somewhat repetitive because at the time that I played it, when it was in beta, there wasn't a ton of missions. It was a certain point of the game you got to, and then it's like there was a whole bunch of content that they needed to add to it. Now they've added a whole bunch of things to it. They've added some boss battles and stuff like that. So I look forward to diving more into that. But I think more importantly, I'm glad it is finally coming to Xbox because when this game was announced, people were thinking, why is it going to Steam and not Xbox? And obviously that was because they were still working on the game. They had to get it to a certain point. Now, finally, it is going to be coming to Xbox game preview, so people can sign up for that. If you have Xbox, you should be able to sign up for that starting, I want to say, in the next 2 weeks or so. They're going to announce this stuff. But yeah, they did announce it is coming, so it's coming. But yeah, I enjoyed that stuff. Very cool event. That was how I spent most of the day. There's one other game I do want to mention because after I left that Xbox event, I went to an indie event. There was the first time they're doing this indie media event. Now they have stuff like the Mix, which I have been to in the past. I unfortunately missed that because it was on Monday night this time around, and I didn't get to San Francisco in time for that. But this indie event, I thought it was very good to go to this event because a lot of the games at that event are games you would not really see. You wouldn't see most of this stuff get recognized on any of the bigger outlets. You won't see a lot of people talking about it because they don't know. But there was one game I saw in particular at this event. I thought very interesting concept. Hopefully the game gets a lot more attention. It's this game made by I guess the studio was called The Game, and the publisher is Starbreeze Entertainment. It's this game called Out of Sight. Right now, they actually have a demo on Steam, but the premise of the game is you're playing as a young girl that's blind, but she has a teddy bear that she uses that basically she uses to get through the environment, and she's trying to escape this house in which she's being held captive by these monster-like creatures. So it's kind of like, it's hard to describe. It's like a 3D stylized game, but the perspective is very interesting because whenever you play as the teddy bear, you can see the teddy bear and then you put the teddy bear down because it's a lot of puzzles in the game. When you put the teddy bear down, you're seeing things from the perspective of the teddy bear, and then you're seeing the character. You have to control the character, the girl, to move something so that she's able to get to the next room. It's the concept of it is very interesting, but how they execute it is, I think, makes it very unique. And I am curious to see if that game gets a lot more attention. It's a game that I look forward to learning and seeing more playing as, because yeah, it is like pretty much a puzzle game, but the way they do it, it's very smart the way they put it together. So I would look forward to that. It's supposed to be coming out sometime in spring. They haven't announced a release date yet. They're going to announce that at some point. But yeah, it is on Steam right now. Right, you can download it and try it out and see if it's something worth checking out. But what I appreciate about this event is that, again, when Steam had their event recently, the Steam demo, I forget what it's called, the Demo Fest event, a lot of games that were released in there, while it's great to try out, some of that stuff gets lost in the shuffle, because if it's a smaller game you may not have heard of, and then there's another game also coming out, you're going to probably be like, well, I want to try out that other game. You might forget it. So this event, I think, is a good idea, because a lot of the games I saw in there, very, very small teams, maybe one developer or a few developers trying to create a game and pretty much put it out there and try to get attention on it. So in those regards, I do hope they do this event more. This was the first time they actually did an indie event like this at GDC. And if it is successful, they're going to try to bring it to PAX and all the other events. So hopefully they are able to do that, because I think the concept is very interesting. And it does give people more opportunity to put focus on their game. Yeah. So rounding out GDC, because there are some other games I want to mention. I can't talk about any of that stuff yet, right? Because under embargo. Let me jump to the Thursday, because very, very interesting day, to say the least. All right. So I had an appointment to check out 2 games that are coming out this year. They've both already announced, so I can talk about this.
Yeah.
Wu Chang, which is a game that our very good friend Carlos Romero has been talking about this game ever since he heard about it. He said, yeah, I can't wait to try this game. Ladies and gentlemen, I had a demo for this game. I got my ass whooped multiple times, but it was a fun game. It's a lot of fun. The demo was very short because they wanted to highlight the pretty much the demo. They're just basically, it gets you a feel for the environment, the types of villains, the characters that you would fight in the game. And of course, they had a boss fight. Now, obviously, I was able to hold my own, exploring the world, killing some of the side enemies. But when I got to that boss battle, oh boy, yes. And if you know, like the Souls-like games, you know what to expect. A lot of dodging, a lot of parrying. And if you don't do it at the right time, you will get destroyed. So I learned. But I mean, it was a fun time. And then I was talking with the people behind it, because this is 505 Games that put this event together. They told me that they had somebody from IGN, because essentially the appointment was 2 hours. Someone from IGN came in to play that game, and they spent all of 2 hours on that game just so they could try and beat the boss.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and they were able to do it, but it took some time. They thought they were going to be done a lot faster than they anticipated, because they told them, hey, yeah, give me about 20 minutes and I'll be done. Bro went in there, at least about an hour, 15 minutes it took for him to finish that. So that's why I said, yeah, you will be tested. But if you are looking for a game, Souls-like, that type of game, you've seen some videos, that game is going to be for you. It's worth checking out. I would say I am curious to try it some more, because the one thing about that demo is that it didn't really dive into the backstory of the character and why you are. There was nothing in there that was about the story or the character, mainly just to get you a feel for the combat, the world, stuff like that. So I am interested. I do want to try out some more. But then this is the last comment that I will make, the last game that I want to highlight here. I played the game that we've all seen the trailer for, called Blades of Fire.
Okay.
Now, this game, man, I really like this game. What I see so far of the game, because I didn't know what to expect. And it's funny because when I started playing the demo, the guy was telling me, now when you go into this game, don't play this like a hack and slash game, because you're supposed to really, dive in and learn the techniques, focus on the weapon. Because essentially what it is like, again, this is like your typical game where there's a hero, this very big burly hero, kind of looks like the type of characters that Adam plays in Gears of War, Marcus Phoenix, so on and so forth, right? But this guy was originally a part of an army battalion, and again, this didn't dive too much in the story. The start of it, I could tell it's like the first chapter, so on and so forth. But the combat is essentially, when you start the game, you pretty much, you end up going to this portal that you can teleport in and out of, and you have to forge your weapon based on found materials in the environment. And every time you're forging the weapon, when you're forged, you put it together. After you forge it, they have like a little mini game as you're forging it, where basically you get a star rating based on how well of a job you did forging. And that is important because that will give you a certain amount of repairs for the weapon. But essentially, after you forge your weapon, you go into the environment, you're basically having to kill all of these different creatures, because what happens is, very early in the game, there is a mentor, like someone that the guy considers a mentor, that gets taken out, and you find out that the queen has done some type of curse, altering steel, some of RPG fantasy stylized type of storyline stuff. But basically, your quest is to find and kill the queen, and in order to do that, you have to go through this journey where you're going across different lands until you get to her, and a lot of enemies you have to face. But essentially, what I like about the game is that I went into the game, the different types of weapons that I was able to make, very interesting, and again, as you forge these weapons, you find out what works and what doesn't work. If you do a certain attack, you learn whether or not it's effective very early on. And of course, weapons do take damage over time. So there's a lot of that. There's puzzles, there's different things you have to do with your character. And the main characters, it does meet, there's like a little kid that's your sidekick, who basically is very good at reading different things, mythological things, to help you solve puzzles. He's very good at that. So that's why he's in the game, because he starts out in the game very early on. He's somebody that you save, but you don't save the old guy.
Is he boy?
No, he's
he plays the role of boy.
yeah. I mean, you probably would make the argument that Kratos' son is Atreus is probably a little bit better than him.
Yeah,
because he can actually fight. This character is just there for to give advice, and then of course they have the little constant jokes back and forth between him and the other guy. The back and forth bickering. So there's some comedic stuff to it as well. But what I like about the game is, the combat. I like the combat. There is a bit of a challenge when fighting certain enemies, and then just using weapons like sledgehammers, swords. But really, you have to make sure that the sword that you're making is you can upgrade every time you find items. There's just a fun element to using these different weapons and taking out enemies with the weapons. I think I really like that stuff. And of course, if you die, now I will say this though. Now, if you die, you may lose the weapon that you had. It will be at the same place you died. So you may be revived. You can forge another weapon until you get to that certain place. Then you'll be able to collect the other weapon that you had. You can have multiple weapons, yes, but the standard heavy attack, standard attack, stuff like that. But yeah, what little I played of the game, it was a lot of fun. It's a game that I wanted to play more, but obviously I didn't have a lot of time with the demo because it's only a 2-hour session, and I had 1 hour for this, 1 hour for Wu Chang. But I'm looking forward to the game, and it is coming out, I think, May 22nd. So yeah, it'll be out relatively soon. But that game was surprising to me because I already was interested in the game prior to going to the event, but then after playing it, I'm really interested in it now. I want to see more, but I enjoyed it for sure.
That's the Mercury Steam game.
Yes, sir.
That they showed. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking
So,
about that. Yeah. Go ahead, Rich. Yeah, but no, it sounds like a pretty action-packed GDC overall.
oh yeah. So what I will say about GDC, like I spoke with a couple of different people. Again, GDC is a very good event as far as networking. I spoke with a couple of different PR people, people that I've always exchanged emails with, I've met for the first time. That's always great. But really it's just about you going and getting a feel for meeting different people and getting an idea of certain things that are happening in the industry. Like, for example, one thing that I can't really get into detail yet, there is one game I saw, right? And I saw what they are doing with that game and something else that they're doing with the game outside of the game, which I'm very interested to see how that does. I will get into detail about that on a future episode of Throwdown, not this week, but maybe next week, because by then the embargo will be over. But overall, it was a very good event. I mean, a lot of people that I spoke to said they feel as though this is like a very good replacement for E3. Although I think you can say from a business standpoint, yeah, if you're doing business, you're talking with business people, then yes. But I wouldn't necessarily say a full replacement for E3 because you don't have the presentations, you don't have the press conferences, you don't have the games you can play. Yeah, you do get to play some games if you have appointments. It's a little bit different though. E3 is a lot different in those regards. But just the idea of being around people who are all also into games, whether it's the devs and stuff, that's all still there. So that was a good experience for that right there.
GDC is very developer centric in general. So it's like, you know, if you were, let's say, if you were a person going there normally, it's not the whole glitz and glamour of like going to an E3. It's an industry show, but it's not like not overtly the pretty side of an industry show. It's an actual industry show, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Rich, did you run into any fellow colleagues of ours?
That is a great question. I did not. I believe that I think Paris was there.
Yeah,
the start of the week, but he was gone. So no, unfortunately, I didn't get to see anybody that we at the event. That will obviously change in the next couple of months. You know that there's other things happening. I know for sure. I will see, but no, I didn't get a chance to see any of our colleagues.
All right.
This time around.
Yeah. Oh, what's up, Michael? We. Oh, by the way, we answered your question, man. And Rich, the other thing I was like, compared to other GDCs that you've been to, how would you like compare this one?
That's a great question. So the last GDC that I went to was before the pandemic. So that was a significant difference because this one I went to, because again, I shout out to 47 PR, one of our PR reps over there. I saw him at this event, spoke with him heavily, and he was telling me about all the stuff that had changed. I would say that it's definitely evolved. There were a lot of people at this event, you know, and again, I spent some time in the convention center, but not so much every single day because I had a lot of appointments that were off-site. But whenever I went in that convention center, they had all types of stuff going on, and I like the fact that as a media individual, they had a lot of things in there for you. Obviously, they have a media room just like they would at PAX, so on and so forth. So if I wanted to get work done, I could go in that room. But then they just had a lot of other stuff. And one thing I will say that I do like is that they did have an event called the GDC Nights after the show. They had it on Monday and Thursday. I was able to go to the Thursday one. That was just a time for you to unwind and you can do some further networking with people with light refreshment, stuff like that. So this was the first year that they actually did that because they wanted to have something else. Because, you know, if you have a lot of appointments on the floor, you're still doing a lot of running around. You don't really get to talk and see everybody. So going to the GDC nights, obviously, that's your opportunity to actually do that. So they definitely are trying to evolve it and make it more of an event that people can really network and not have the stress of all this other stuff. They want to make it a little bit more laid back. So I think they're doing a good job with that. But overall, I would say, Yeah, I enjoyed the show. I'm definitely going back next year. I'm going to make sure I get there earlier. However, I'm not going to go in on Monday because it really started on Sunday because they had an indie game event that took place on Sunday that I missed. But definitely
was that the Indiecade thing? There was they usually have one of those indie things where it's like a big room where you sort of like they do food and all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
It was the Day of the Devs. Devs.
That's it. Day of the Devs.
Yeah. They had that on Sunday, like Sunday afternoon. So I wish I could have went to that because that would have been a good opportunity to see some other things. But they're going to have it again at other upcoming events. So I will definitely make it to the next one. And of course, the Mix, which I think is the best event. I actually was talking with one of my very good friends who was in charge of that. He said they had over 500 people that was at that Mix event.
Oh, wow.
So that was the biggest that they've ever had for a turnout. So I look forward to definitely going to the next one they have. But yeah, I'm glad they had a good time with that event.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, thanks for that breakdown, man. That was great. Like, I like the stories. It made me feel like I was actually there, you know? That was good. So obviously looking forward to hearing your thoughts on next year's and, you know, other events, because I'm pretty sure you will also be attending Summer Game Fest, you know?
I would say there is some possibility of that, I guess. But, you know, we have to see what happens in the future. But, yeah, very good guess.
Good stuff. All right, man, let's start wrapping it up. Let's start plugging stuff. Manny, you go first before the camera gets stupid because you're looking good right now.
Yes. So, up Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Number 7's out. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Number 8 is out, which is the Leonardo cover. Covers by Cara Randolph and myself, Emilio Lopez. Out on the streets this week on the 26th, right? This is the week of the 26th,
yes.
right?
Yep.
On the 26th, Naruto, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Naruto, which is we also did a cover for it. That is out on the street coming out on that day, and make sure you look for the retailer exclusive cover, which is me and Kari doing some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Naruto stuff. A lot of people really like that one. It's unfortunate that cover's not more readily available, but we don't have control over that, unfortunately. But yeah.
All right, good stuff. And Rich, what's coming up on the coalition this week?
Oh, yes, that's a great question. So I believe our very good friend, Mr. Adam Vale, will have another Reacher coming up. It is the season finale, so yeah, that should be very interesting. I haven't been watching the show, but I heard it is very entertaining. So I got to check that out. Myself, Data, and Gary will be doing our next Power episode. So if you are a fan of the Power show on Stars, look for that review. That'll be sometime later in the week. On the gaming side, however, I'm working on a ton of different previews and reviews. And I can say this because I did get access to this. I will be reviewing the Atomfall game. Unfortunately, that code got sent very late. So that review is going to be coming at some point, but I don't know. And then, of course, we do have South of Midnight, which is coming, I think, in the next 2 weeks. So I will be covering that also. In that game, I don't know when that code is coming. I would assume sometime soon. We'll see. But I can say that because I previewed the game. So that's my guess. But yeah, a lot of other things I'm working on under an embargo. Stay tuned for that. And the last thing I will mention is there definitely will be more said about Assassin's Creed Shadows in the future. We haven't figured out yet when we're going to actually do this because we have a lot of other things we're working on. But stay tuned for that.
Yeah, there you go. I want to give another shout out to Jay Shep because he's going to be very happy that you're going to be reviewing Atomfall because he's been hyped about that. So definitely look forward to that. Yep. He's been talking about it. So, you know, definitely.
Right, that's good.
Yeah. So he'll definitely be looking forward to that. And I believe that's it. I felt like there was something I wanted to say, but it's forgotten. So actually, wait, I do know what I would say, but it's off air. It's off air. Can't talk about that. You know, anyway, make sure you follow Throwdown on Twitch and Twitter. Subscribe to us on YouTube, join the Discord, and follow us on your favorite podcast app. Links to everything down below. Once again, our show is Tony Polanco, and tonight I was joined by Emilio Lopez.
See you next time.
And Richard Bailey Jr.
Have a good week, everybody.
All right, guys, you already know we're back on Thursday later.